I want you to give me a baby." She said it like a confession, like a sin, like something she had been holding in her mouth for months and could not swallow anymore. And the worst part, for 1 second I didn't say no. I just stood there staring at her, rain dripping from her hair onto my floor, her hands shaking around a blue and yellow blanket I had seen 100 times but never understood. "I'm not asking you to love me," Claire whispered. "I'm asking you to help me live again." That should have made it easier. It didn't, because upstairs my 6-year-old daughter was asleep, and everything I did in this life, every breath, every choice belonged to her. So what kind of father even considers a question like that? What kind of man hesitates before saying no? And why did part of me want to say yes? I didn't sleep that night. Not because Claire's words shocked me, because they exposed me. I've spent 3 years building a life that cannot collapse. 3 years making sure my daughter, Mia, never feels what I felt growing up: instability, arguments behind closed doors, parents who loved drama more than their kids. Her mom left when Mia was 3, packed a suitcase, said she needed more than us. I promised myself something that morning. No chaos, no risks. No woman would ever walk into my daughter's life and walk back out again. Safety became my religion. Routine became my armor. And Claire's request, it wasn't just complicated, it was dynamite. The next morning, Mia was humming at the breakfast table, swinging her legs under her chair. "Daddy, are you sad?" "Kids see everything." "I'm not sad," I said too quickly. She tilted her head. "You look like when my goldfish died." That hit harder than it should have. I forced a smile, just thinking about grown-up stuff. She nodded like that made sense. Then she said something I wasn't prepared for. "Miss Clare was crying last week." My hand froze on the coffee mug. "What?" She thought I didn't see, but I did. She was holding that blue blanket, the baby one. I swallowed. "What do you think about Miss Clare?" I asked carefully. Mia shrugged. "She's lonely." It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't heavy, it was simple, and that made it worse. "She watches me like she's trying to remember something," Mia added. My chest tightened. Because I knew exactly what she was remembering. A daughter she buried 5 years ago. I hadn't known that when Claire moved in across the street. Back then, she was just the quiet neighbor with perfect roses and a house too clean to feel lived in. We became friends slowly. I fixed her sink. She baked lemon bars. Mia adored her. And I told myself it was harmless, safe, until that night. Until she stood in my doorway and told me she had lost her husband and her little girl to a drunk driver. Until she said, "I miss being a mom so much it hurts to breathe." And then, "I want another baby." But not from a stranger, from someone she trusted, from someone who knew how to show up. From me, I said no, immediately, too fast, too defensive. "Mia comes first," I told her, which was true. But not the whole truth. The whole truth. I was afraid. Afraid that helping Claire would pull me into something messy. Afraid that loving again, even indirectly, meant risking losing again. Afraid that if I said yes, I wouldn't be able to stay detached. Because here's the part no one knows. When Claire laughs, it feels like sunlight breaking through winter. When she looks at Mia, there's this softness that makes my throat close. And when she said she trusted me with her future child's DNA, I felt seen in a way I haven't felt in years. That terrified me. She left that night thinking I rejected her, but I didn't reject her. I rejected the risk. There's a difference. The problem is, I couldn't stop thinking about it. At work, I tightened bolts without remembering doing it. At dinner, I poured salt instead of sugar into Mia's oatmeal. My sister Naomi called it out immediately. "You're not calling me about a plumbing job," she said. "What happened?" So I told her. There was silence on the other end. Then, "Are you protecting Mia, or are you protecting yourself?" I hated that question because I didn't have a clean answer. 3 nights later, Claire texted, "I'm sorry I put you in that position. I won't bring it up again." That should have been relief. Instead, it felt like something closing, like a door that once shut would never open again. And for the first time in 3 years, the idea of my life staying exactly the same scared me more than the idea of it changing. I walked across the street, didn't text, didn't call, just knocked. When she opened the door, her eyes were guarded. "I came to ask questions," I said, "not promises, not decisions, questions." We sat across from each other. No tea this time, just tension. "Why me?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "Because I've watched you choose your daughter every single day." No romance in her voice. No manipulation, just truth. "You fix things," she said quietly, "even when they're not yours." That line stayed with me, even now. "I'm not asking for a husband," she continued. "I'm not asking you to move in. I can raise the baby alone. I just don't want my child's father to be a file number." "And what happens in 5 years?" I challenged. "When you meet someone else?" "Then we handle it like adults." "And if I want to be involved?" "Then you are." "What?" "And if Mia struggles?" "Then we protect her, together." She wasn't reckless. She wasn't impulsive. She had thought about every angle. The only thing she hadn't accounted for was my fear. That night I stood in Mia's doorway again, watched her sleep. She looked small, fragile. "Mine," I whispered, "would this hurt you?" She didn't answer, but I remembered what she said at breakfast. "She's lonely." I don't want my daughter growing up believing that loneliness is something you ignore, or that helping someone rebuild their life is dangerous. But I also don't want her father split in half between two houses, between two daughters, between two futures. So tell me, if saying no keeps everything safe, but saying yes might build something beautiful, which one makes me a better father? I didn't tell Claire yes that night. I told her I needed time, which is what men say when they're terrified of their own feelings, the truth. I was already leaning toward yes, and that scared me more than anything. 2 days later, Mia asked if we could bring cookies to Miss Clare. "She hasn't waved in 3 mornings," she said, like that meant something serious. It did. Claire used to wave every morning, like clockwork. I baked with Mia. Burned the first batch because I was distracted. We walked across the street together. Mia held the plate like it was an offering. Claire opened the door slowly. She looked thinner, quieter, like she had folded herself inward. "Hi," she said gently. Mia launched into her without warning. "We made cookies. Daddy almost burned the house down." Claire laughed, and I swear to you that sound hit me harder than her original request, because I realized something in that moment. When she laughs, the house feels alive. When she doesn't, it feels abandoned. While Mia showed her a drawing in the living room, I stood in Claire's kitchen pretending to examine the sink. "You don't have to fix anything," she said softly. "I know." Silence stretched between us. "I won't ask again," she added. That hurt more than if she had pushed. "Stop apologizing," I said. "I'm not apologizing, I'm accepting." Her hands were steady, too steady, like someone who had already braced for impact. "Claire," I said quietly, "if we even consider this, it's not a favor. It's not charity. It's a permanent connection." She met my eyes. "I know. And Mia comes first." "I know. And if I'm in that child's life, I'm in fully, not halfway." Her breath caught. "You want that?" "I don't know what I want," I admitted, "but I know I don't do halfway." That was the first crack in the wall. That night Mia asked something that nearly broke me. "Daddy, if Miss Clare had a baby, would I be the big sister?" The air left my lungs. "Why would you think that?" "Because babies need daddies," she said simply, "and you're a really good one." Kids don't overcomplicate things. They don't spiral into legal agreements or worst-case scenarios. They see love. They see need. They connect dots. "Would you be mad," I asked carefully, "if you helped her?" She thought about it, then shook her head. "As long as you still read to me every night." I pulled her into my chest. "Every night," I promised. That was the moment something shifted, not because Mia approved, but because I realized I was underestimating her strength. I was using her as my shield, and maybe she didn't need one. I asked Claire to dinner, neutral ground, public place, somewhere we could talk without the ghosts in her living room watching. She looked nervous. "So did I? Why now?" She asked after we ordered. "Because I don't like unfinished things," I said. "That's not true," she replied softly. "You left this unfinished." "Fair, tell me something," I said. If I say yes and we try and it works, what changes? Everything, she said without hesitation. Be specific. You become connected to me forever. Mia gains a sibling. I get to be a mother again. And we both lose the illusion of control. That last part hung heavy. You're honest, I said. I can't afford not to be. I watched her hands. They weren't shaking anymore. This wasn't desperation now. This was resolve. I need boundaries, I said. Good. I need legal clarity. Already researched. I need to know you won't use this child to replace the one you lost. Her face softened instead of breaking. I will never replace Emma, she said quietly. I'm not trying to copy her. I'm trying to survive her. That line hit somewhere deep, because I understood that. Grief isn't about erasing, it's about continuing. We talked for 3 hours, logistics, doctors, names, last names, how we'd tell Mia. What happens if one of us meets someone? What if I fall in love with you? I asked suddenly. The question slipped out before I could stop it. She blinked. That's not part of the agreement. Answer it. Her voice lowered. Then we deal with it honestly. That scared me more than anything else she'd said, because she didn't laugh it off. She didn't deny the possibility, she just left it there. When I drove home, my chest felt tight, not with fear, with inevitability. This wasn't reckless anymore. It was deliberate, thought through, discussed, challenged. I stood outside Mia's room that night, listened to her breathing. And I asked myself the only question that mattered. Am I doing this to fill a hole in Claire's life? Or am I doing this because I believe creating life, even in a complicated way, is worth the risk? The answer surprised me. It wasn't about Claire. It wasn't about loneliness. It wasn't even about grief. It was about legacy, about choosing to expand love instead of guarding it. The next evening, I asked Mia one more question. If our family ever grew, would you feel replaced? She frowned. You can't replace me, she said like it was obvious. I'm the first one. I laughed despite the tension. You're right. And babies are loud, she added thoughtfully, but they're cute too. She paused. Is Miss Clare sad again? A little. Mia nodded. Then maybe we help her. Simple. Clean, brave, everything I was struggling to be. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was uncertain, but because I knew once I said yes, there was no undoing it. This wouldn't be like dating. It wouldn't be like trying something and backing out. This would be permanent, a child, another life tied to mine, another heartbeat that could break me. That was the risk, not Claire, not society, not gossip, loss. I was afraid of losing again. The next morning, I walked across the street before work. Didn't text, didn't warn her. When she opened the door, I didn't sit, didn't hesitate. I'm in, I said. Her breath left her like I'd knocked it out of her. You're sure? No, I admitted, but I'm choosing it anyway. Tears filled her eyes. I won't let you regret this. You don't get to promise that, I said gently. We're going to regret parts of it. We're going to panic. We're going to fight about boundaries. She gave a shaky laugh. Probably. But we're going to do it clean, I continued. Legal agreement, clear roles, Mia protected, no secrets. She nodded over and over. Yes, yes, all of it. I stepped closer. One more thing. She froze. If this ever becomes unhealthy for you, for me, for Mia, we stop. Agreed. And Claire? Yes. If I'm doing this, I'm not disappearing. I'm not just DNA. Her eyes softened. I wouldn't want you to. And in that quiet living room with morning light coming through the curtains, we shook hands. Not romantic, not dramatic, just two adults making a life-altering decision. When I got home that evening, Mia ran to the door. Did you fix Miss Clare's sink? No. Then why were you over there? I crouched to her level because we decided to help her. She studied my face with the baby thing. I nodded. She was quiet for a long time, then. Okay. That was it. No tears, no drama, just trust. And that trust felt heavier than anything else, because now I had to earn it. Later that night, alone in my kitchen, I finally allowed myself to feel it. The weight, the fear, the possibility. I had just agreed to change 3 lives, maybe more, and I had no idea if I had just made the bravest decision of my life. Or the most reckless. The first time it didn't work, Claire pretended she wasn't disappointed. I knew it might take a few tries, she said, folding the negative test into the trash like it was just paper. But her shoulders gave her away. They dropped, just slightly. And I realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't theoretical anymore. This was hope. Monthly, measured, fragile. We had done everything the right way. Lawyer first. Contracts signed. Clear boundaries written in ink so no one could twist them later. I would not owe child support unless I chose to. I would have visitation rights if I wanted them. Major medical decisions would be shared. Claire would be primary parent, everything clean, everything responsible. It should have made it easier. It didn't, because legal clarity doesn't protect your heart. The second month failed too. This time she didn't try to act strong. She just sat on her kitchen floor and cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears sliding down her face while she held that blue and yellow blanket in her lap. I didn't know if I was allowed to touch her, so I sat beside her instead. I can stop, I said. She looked up immediately. No. I mean it, you don't owe me continuation, if this is too much. It's not too much, she interrupted. It's just hope is exhausting. That line stayed with me. Hope is exhausting, especially when you've already buried it once. Mia started noticing patterns. Why do you go to Miss Clare's house every few weeks at night? I chose honesty without detail. We're trying to help her build something important. Like a house. Like a family. She absorbed that. Then asked something that cut straight through me. If the baby comes, will you love it the same way you love me? The question every single parent fears. I didn't hesitate. No. Her face fell. Because I won't love it the same way, I clarified. I'll love it differently, but you're my first heartbeat. That doesn't change. She thought about that, then nodded, okay. She trusted me, and that trust felt sacred. Month 3 failed, month 4. By month 5 I could see fear creeping into Claire's eyes. What if I waited too long? She whispered one night. You're 33, not 53, I said gently. What if my body doesn't cooperate? What if it does? She laughed weakly. You're very good at redirecting. I fix appliances for a living, I said. If it's broken, I look for another solution. She studied me. Why are you still so calm? I wasn't calm, I was terrified, but I had already crossed the line. Backing out now would feel like abandoning her mid-sentence. I said yes, I told her. That means I don't disappear when it's hard. Her eyes softened in a way that made my chest tight. Somewhere in those months our rhythm changed. It stopped feeling clinical, stopped feeling like an arrangement. We started talking about things beyond ovulation schedules and doctor appointments. She told me about her husband, about how he used to hum off-key in the shower, about the way Emma insisted on wearing princess dresses to grocery stores. I told her about Mia's first steps, about the night her mom left, about the panic of being the only adult in the room forever. We didn't realize it at first, but we were building something, trust, not romance, not yet, but something steady. Then it happened. Month 6. Claire called me at work. She wasn't crying, she wasn't steady either. Ethan, she said, her voice shaking in a way I hadn't heard before. Can you come over? My stomach dropped. Is everything okay? I don't want to say it on the phone. I left work early, drove faster than I should have. When she opened the door, she was holding something. Her hands were trembling, 2 pink lines. For a second I couldn't breathe. You're sure? I asked. She nodded. I took 3. She started laughing and crying at the same time. It worked, she whispered. It actually worked. What? I don't remember crossing the room. I just remember holding her and realizing this wasn't theory anymore. This was life. A heartbeat somewhere inside her that belonged to both of us, and the weight of that nearly knocked me to my knees. That night I sat in Mia's room longer than usual. She was asleep, curled around her stuffed rabbit. I watched her breathe and tried to picture another child, another small body depending on me in some way, another voice calling my name. Fear wrapped around joy in a way I couldn't untangle. I wasn't scared of diapers or sleepless nights. I was scared of loving something that could be taken away. Loss had already taught me that lesson once. I didn't want a refresher course. The first ultrasound changed everything. Claire asked if I wanted to come. I said yes before she finished the sentence. In that dim room, when the screen flickered to life, I tried to prepare myself for detachment, clinical, responsible, boundaried. Then the doctor pointed. There's the heartbeat. It was small, flickering, relentless, and something inside me cracked open. Claire reached for my hand without looking. I let her, not because it was romantic, but because in that moment we were the only two people in the world who understood what that flicker meant. Life, risk, irreversible connection. On the drive home, she was quiet. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm happy," she said, "and I'm terrified." "Me too." She gave a shaky laugh. "That makes me feel better." Telling Mia was harder than I expected. We sat on the couch together, Claire across from us. "Mia," I began carefully, "remember how we talked about helping Miss Clare?" She nodded slowly. "Well, there's a baby coming." Her eyes widened, like actually. "Actually? And it's yours?" she asked bluntly. "Yes." Silence. I could see her thinking, working it through. "So, I'm going to be a big sister." "Yes." She looked at Claire. "Are you going to love it more than Emma?" The room froze. Claire didn't hesitate. "No," she said gently. "I'll love her differently. Emma will always be Emma. This baby will be herself." Mia seemed satisfied with that. "Okay," she said finally. "Can I help pick the name?" Claire laughed through tears. "Yes." And just like that, my 6-year-old handled it with more grace than most adults I know. As Claire's belly grew, so did the reality. Neighbors started asking questions. Whispers started circling. I didn't care. What mattered was inside 2 houses. Mia would press her ear against Claire's stomach and talk to the baby. "I'm your big sister," she'd say seriously. "I'll teach you everything." Watching them, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't instability. This was expansion, but expansion still stretches you thin. And at night, when everything was quiet, doubt crept back in. What if something went wrong? What if I wasn't strong enough to handle another loss? What if loving again meant surviving another funeral? That was the fear no one saw. Not Claire, not Mia, just me, standing in the dark. Trying to convince myself that bravery wasn't just another word for reckless. One night as rain hit the windows, Claire asked softly, "Do you regret it?" I didn't answer immediately because the honest answer mattered. "I'm scared," I admitted. "That's not regret. I'm scared of how much this already matters." She looked at me carefully. "Me too." And in that shared fear, something deeper began to grow, not just a baby, but us. Labor started on a Wednesday. Claire didn't scream. She didn't panic. She just called me and said very calmly, "It's time." I was under a sink fixing a leaking pipe when my phone buzzed. For a second, I just stared at the screen. Then everything in me shifted into motion. I finished the job in 5 minutes flat, didn't even remember how. Naomi picked Mia up from school. We had planned that part, planned everything. But no one can plan the feeling of your heart trying to climb out of your chest. At the hospital, they assumed I was her husband. I didn't correct them. Not because I wanted the title, because it didn't matter. I was there. That was enough. Claire squeezed my hand through every contraction. At one point, she looked at me and said, "If I die, tell my daughter I fought." The word daughter hit different this time. "Don't say that," I told her, gripping her hand tighter. "I'm not dying." But I understood what she meant. Birth is risk. Love is risk. Life is risk. And we were standing in the middle of all three. 12 hours later, Hazel entered the world screaming. Loud, alive, unapologetic. Claire sobbed the second she heard her cry, not delicate tears, full body shaking sobs. "She's here," she kept whispering. "She's here." The nurse placed Hazel on her chest. Tiny fingers, dark hair, impossibly small. I thought I was prepared. I was. Because when I looked at her, I didn't see an arrangement, I didn't see a contract. I saw my daughter, different story, same blood, and the fear I had carried for 9 months cracked into something else, something bigger. "Do you want to hold her?" Claire asked. I hesitated, because holding her meant admitting this was real, meant letting attachment grow roots. But I stepped forward anyway. When Hazel's weight settled into my arms, something inside me went quiet, not fear, not doubt, just recognition. "Hi," I whispered. She opened her eyes for half a second, and I swear it felt like being chosen. The first weeks were brutal. Hazel cried for hours, Claire barely slept, milk-stained shirts, messy hair, dark circles under her eyes, and I split myself between two houses. Evenings with Claire helping with feedings, mornings with Mia making pancakes. I thought I could manage it all. I couldn't. Naomi showed up unannounced one Saturday. "You look wrecked," she said bluntly. "I'm fine." "You're not fine." She lowered her voice. "You cannot be father to everyone and collapse in the middle." That one hit because she was right. I had started overextending, trying to be hero instead of partner, trying to prove something to Claire, to myself, maybe to the ghost of fear I'd been fighting. That night I sat across from Claire in her living room, Hazel asleep in a bassinet beside us. "I need boundaries," I said gently. Her face fell for a split second, then she nodded. "Okay. I want to help, I will help, but I can't be here every night. Mia needs me too." "You think I don't know that?" she asked quietly, tears welled in her eyes. "I'm scared of doing this alone." "You're not alone," I said, "but I'm not your husband." Silence, heavy, honest. "You're right," she said finally. "I don't want to take from Mia to fill my fear." That was the moment I respected her more than ever, because she didn't guilt me, she adjusted. We built a schedule, 2 nights a week, shared decisions, clear lines, and suddenly it felt sustainable, not chaotic, not suffocating, just structured love. Mia met Hazel properly a few days later. She approached the bassinet like it was sacred. "She's so tiny," she whispered. Claire guided her hands carefully. When Hazel's small fingers wrapped around Mia's thumb, my oldest daughter's entire face changed. "I'm going to protect you," Mia said seriously. And just like that, the fear I'd carried about her feeling replaced vanished. There was no jealousy, only pride, only wonder she didn't lose something. She gained someone, but something else was shifting too, something I hadn't prepared for. Claire started laughing more, really laughing, not the polite version, not the practiced one. She'd sit on the floor exhausted, Hazel crying in her arms, and look at me with this wild expression and say, "Why did we think this was a good idea?" And we'd both laugh. And in those moments it didn't feel like an agreement. It felt like partnership, not romantic, not yet. But deeper. Shared chaos bonds people in strange ways. One evening after Mia went home and Hazel was finally asleep, Claire and I sat on the porch, rain tapping lightly on the railing. "I thought grief would swallow this," she admitted softly. "What do you mean?" "I thought every milestone would break me, that I'd compare her to Emma and drown. And I don't." She looked surprised by her own words. "I miss Emma every day, but Hazel isn't a replacement, she's new." I exhaled slowly. I needed to hear that. She turned toward me. "Do you regret it?" There it was again, that question, and this time I didn't hesitate. "No." "Even the hard parts?" "Especially the hard parts." Because hard meant real, hard meant alive. Hard meant I hadn't hidden from something that mattered. Then came the complication I didn't see coming. Claire went on a date, a man from her design work, polite, stable, interested. She told me about it casually, testing the waters, and something inside me twisted, not anger, not betrayal, just discomfort. I told myself it was protective instinct, co-parent concern. But when I met him one afternoon while dropping Mia off and he shook my hand like we were discussing a business merger, I felt something unexpected. Jealousy. That shook me, because we had agreed. No romance. No assumptions. But watching someone else sit in her kitchen felt wrong in a way I didn't know how to process. Mia noticed before I did. "Daddy," she said one night while brushing her teeth, "you look weird when Marcus is there." "I don't look weird." You do. She spit toothpaste into the sink. Do you love Miss Clare? The question landed heavy. I care about her. That's not what I asked. Kids, unfiltered, brutal. I leaned against the counter. I don't know. But deep down I did. I just hadn't said it out loud yet, and saying it would change everything. Again. The first time I admitted it to myself, I was standing in Claire's kitchen holding Hazel at 2 in the morning. Marcus had just left an hour earlier. He'd brought flowers. He'd kissed Claire on the cheek. He stayed for dinner. He'd laughed at the right moments. He looked stable, safe. The kind of man who didn't make reckless decisions. The kind of man I used to think Claire needed. Hazel stirred in my arms. I rocked her gently, and it hit me like a confession I couldn't swallow anymore. I didn't want another man building a life with her, not because of ego, not because of control, because I loved her. And loving her meant this arrangement was no longer neutral. I handed Hazel back to Claire. You should go home, she said softly. You've done enough tonight. I don't want to. The word slipped out. She froze. What? I exhaled slowly. This is getting complicated. It's always been complicated. Not like this. She studied my face, and I knew she saw it, the shift, the thing I had been trying not to name. Ethan, she said carefully, Marcus is just something normal. Normal, I repeated. Yeah. Normal, predictable, traditional. Not two neighbors who created a baby before falling in love. Not a single dad who shook hands over life-changing decisions. Normal, and suddenly I hated the word. That night I didn't sleep. I replayed everything. The porch conversations, the ultrasounds, the labor. The way she looks at Hazel like she's a miracle. The way she looks at me when she thinks I'm not paying attention. I had been telling myself this was partnership, support, shared responsibility. But it wasn't just that. It was intimacy built in the trenches, and somewhere between midnight feedings and whispered fears I had crossed a line. The problem, I didn't know if she had. The next Saturday, rain came down hard. Oregon rain that doesn't ask permission. Mia was building a blanket fort in our living room. Hazel was napping across the street. Claire texted, Marcus wants me to move in. My chest tightened, too fast, way too fast. I walked over without replying. She opened the door already knowing why I was there. I haven't said yes, she said immediately. Do you want to? She didn't answer. That silence said everything. We sat across from each other at her kitchen table, the same table where we'd signed legal drafts, the same table where she'd taken pregnancy tests. Talk to me, I said. He's good, she said quietly. He's stable. He likes Hazel. He wants a family. And I don't feel the way I thought I would. There it was, the crack. You deserve certainty, I said. She looked at me sharply. Why are you saying that like it hurts you? Because it did. Because watching her try to talk herself into something steady when what we had was electric felt unbearable. Because I don't want you choosing someone just because it looks safe. Her eyes softened. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're afraid to choose something messier. She leaned back, and what's messier? I stood, closed the distance. Me. Silence, the kind that hums in your ears. Ethan, she whispered. No contracts, no boundaries, no pretending this is just co-parenting. My voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. I love you. There it was, out, unprotected, her breath caught. You can't say that lightly. I'm not. You said yes to the baby because it was brave. I know. And now I'm saying this because I don't want to live safe. Rain hit the windows harder, like punctuation. She stood slowly. You think this hasn't crossed my mind? She asked. You think I haven't felt something shift every time you walk through that door? My pulse pounded. You have. I've been fighting it, she admitted. Because we agreed. Because I didn't want to complicate something that was finally working. Her voice trembled. And because I was terrified of losing you. That hit harder than anything, Claire. I already lost one life I loved, she continued. I didn't know if I could survive losing another. That was the real fear. Not Marcus, not neighbors, loss, always loss. On the other side of the room, Mia's laughter echoed faintly through the rain. Claire glanced toward the sound. "She adores you," she said softly. "And she adores you." We were standing in the middle of something neither of us planned, again, and this time there were two children watching. "We can't rush this," she said. "I'm not asking to rush. I won't choose you because it's dramatic. Good. And I won't reject you because it's scary." That was enough. Not a kiss, not fireworks, just truth laid bare. Marcus got his answer that week. No, Claire didn't cry, didn't second guess. She told me afterward. "I didn't want normal," she said quietly. "I wanted real." I didn't touch her, didn't push. We let it breathe, let it grow naturally. Because this time, there was more at stake than just us. 2 nights later, Mia asked something that nearly knocked me over. "Are you and Miss Clare going to get married?" "Why would you think that?" She shrugged. "You look at her like Uncle David looks at Aunt Naomi. Kids see everything." "I don't know yet," I admitted. "Are you scared?" "Yes." She smiled. "Then it's probably important." 7 years old, and somehow wiser than I ever was. That night Claire came over after both girls were asleep. We didn't sit across from each other. We sat side by side, close enough to feel warmth, not touching. "I don't want this to be about the baby," she said softly. "It's not. I don't want it to be gratitude. It's not. I don't want it to be loneliness. It's not." She finally turned to me. "What is it then?" "It's you," I said simply. "The way you fight to live, the way you love without apology, the way you chose hope even when it exhausted you." Her eyes filled. "And you," she whispered, "you make me braver than I was." No dramatic music, no grand speech. Just two exhausted adults choosing something real, this time without a contract, this time without an agreement drafted in ink, this time with risk fully understood. The first time we kissed, it wasn't dramatic, no spinning, no movie soundtrack, just quiet, careful, intentional. Hazel was asleep in her crib. Mia was at Naomi's for a sleepover. The house felt still in a way it rarely did. Claire stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching Hazel breathe. "She looks peaceful," she whispered. "She gets that from you." Claire smiled faintly. "Emma used to sleep like that." The name didn't freeze the room anymore. It didn't shatter her voice. It lived there now, softly, like memory instead of wound. She turned toward me. "I'm not replacing anything," she said gently. "I know. I'm not trying to rewrite my past. I know. I'm choosing you because I love you." That was the moment, not fireworks, not a grand confession, just clarity. I stepped forward, slow, deliberate. "Say it again." She didn't hesitate. "I love you." This time I didn't feel fear under it. No shadow of loss. No what-if spirals, just truth. "I love you too," I said. And when I kissed her, it wasn't about rescuing someone. It wasn't about being brave. It was about finally allowing myself to want something fully. We didn't rush into moving in together. We didn't collapse the two houses overnight. We built it carefully, on purpose. Mia adjusted better than I expected. She liked having two front doors to run between. She liked helping Hazel crawl. She liked telling people, very seriously, "My family is different, but it works." Hazel grew into laughter, into chubby hands grabbing at everything, into a presence that filled rooms instead of echoing them. And Claire. Claire didn't drown in grief. She carried it differently. She talked about Emma openly, showed Hazel photos, told stories about princess dresses and grocery store adventures. Grief stopped being a hole. It became history. The first time Hazel said "Dada," I froze. Claire was in the kitchen. Mia was on the floor building a block tower. Hazel looked straight at me. "Dada." I didn't move, didn't breathe, because that word wasn't in the contract. It wasn't required. It wasn't negotiated. It was chosen by her. Claire saw my face and laughed through tears. "Well," she said softly, "I guess that answers that." I picked Hazel up carefully, like I was holding something sacred, and I realized something then. I hadn't split my heart, it had expanded. There was no less for Mia, there was just more. A year later, I asked Claire to marry me. Not because it made the story cleaner, not because people expected it, because I couldn't imagine building anything else without her. It wasn't grand. No flash mob, no restaurant applause. Just the four of us in the backyard, Mia holding a small wooden box I'd handed her, Hazel toddling unevenly across the grass. "Claire," I said quietly, kneeling, "we did this backwards." She laughed. "We absolutely did. But I don't regret a single step." I opened the box, simple ring, no drama. "I didn't say yes because I wasn't scared," I told her. "I said yes because you mattered more than the fear." Her eyes filled immediately. "I know," she whispered. "And you taught me something," I continued. "That surviving isn't the same thing as living." The girls were watching, listening, so I made sure they heard the next part clearly. "I want to live with you, not just survive." Claire didn't hesitate. "Yes." Mia squealed before Hazel even understood what was happening. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was protecting something fragile. I felt like I was building something strong. 5 years later, people don't ask questions anymore. They just see us. Mia is taller now, confident, protective in ways that make my chest ache. Hazel follows her everywhere. Claire still keeps the blue and yellow blanket folded carefully in a drawer, not hidden, not clutched in desperation, just honored. Sometimes she pulls it out and tells Hazel about Emma. And Hazel listens like it's a fairy tale, because in our house the past isn't erased, it's woven in. One night Mia asked me something I'll never forget. "Daddy, do you ever wish you said no?" I looked at her, really looked at her, at the way she leaned comfortably against Claire, at Hazel asleep on the couch, at the life that started with a knock on a door. "No," I said honestly, "not once." She nodded slowly. "Good, because if you said no, Hazel wouldn't be here." She paused, and neither would this. She gestured around the room. The noise, the warmth, the chaos, the love. I used to believe safety was the most important thing I could give my daughter. Now I know better. Safety matters, but so does courage, so does compassion, so does saying yes when everything inside you is shaking. Because sometimes the scariest decision isn't the wrong one. Sometimes it's the doorway. Claire once asked me if surviving was enough. It is. Surviving keeps you breathing, but living builds something that outlasts fear. And if there's one thing I hope my daughters remember about me, it's this. I didn't say yes because it was easy. I said yes because love was worth the risk. And that choice changed everything.